Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew Demeter here, broadcasting live. I am really excited right now because I see that we have 19 viewers. And if any of you guys have been watching Teen Take since its inception, really, you know that this is the most amount of viewers that I've ever had, probably like five-fold of that, really. So this is incredible. I really want you guys to open up in the chat. That would be incredible. If you guys have any topics that you'd like me to discuss or just bounce really anything off of me, any questions, suggestions, topics, anything, I'm glad to interact with anybody in this stream. 30 people now. Oh my goodness, this is incredible. So one of the things that I wanted to focus on in this live stream that's really only going to be about an hour, because I just did a 3-hour stream last night, is Syria, because we all know that in Syria there have been these various chemical warfare, or there has been chemical warfare, and you guys also probably know that it's been funded by the Obama administration, who are funding and arming these Syrian rebels who are mercilessly ripping out the hearts of Christians, eating them, filming the occurrence, and then posting it online. So it's just incredibly disgusting that we call ourselves this free nation and these people who embrace and advocate liberty when truly we're doing the exact inverse. So the article that I have here is by the Washington Post, and it's entitled, "Obama Says U.S. Will Take Military Action Against Syria, Pending Congress's Approval." So it sounds like Obama's trying to be like this competent president now, instead of acting outside of the law and imposing these executive orders that he can drone strike innocent children. Now he's saying, oh, well, maybe I will decide to give some credence to this arbitrary piece of parchment that has scribbles written on it that somehow constitutes rights in our country. So it's really funny to me. If you guys have any thoughts on that, feel free to again voice them in the chat below, as I'd love to hear them. Now we have a viewer comment. Good to be here. Want me to share the link? Yeah, Grayson Grant, if you want to share the link to the Washington Post article, I actually have it here, so I'll post it as well, if that's easier. Oh, unfortunately I can't. I'd have to shorten it with bit.ly, and I don't really feel like doing that. So if you want to do that, go ahead. So anyways, we have 40 people in here right now. This is incredible. Again, so to all new viewers, welcome to Teen Take Live. I am 15 years old. My name is Andrew Demeter, and I am embracing the liberty movement and embracing and subscribing to the non-aggression principle, because after seeing what goes on in this country and how it's run and how we conduct relations abroad and how the U.S. essentially acts as this international police force, I have been abhorrently disgusted, and I really don't want to be a part of this system. And that's what I've been trying to do: break these chains of enslavement that bind us to the system and the technocracy to which we live. So continuing on, again, to all new viewers, if you have any suggestions, any topics you'd like to bring up, feel free to voice them in the chat section. If not, feel free to add me on Skype as well. If I'll be taking callers shortly, you can add me on Skype. The username is TeenTake, no spaces. And otherwise, if you guys want to voice anything via Facebook, that works as well. I'm going to post this live stream on We Are Change, the Facebook page, and hopefully we can get some more people in here. But again, these numbers are absolutely incredible. This is unprecedented in Teen Take Live history. So I'll briefly read some more excerpts of this Washington Post article, or actually read some to begin with, because I hadn't done so. So President Obama said Saturday, meaning today obviously, that the United States has decided to use military force against Syria, saying last week's alleged chemical weapons attack was, quote, an attack on human dignity. Oh, okay, yeah, but President Obama's drone strikes on innocent children abroad, and even American citizens who aren't terrorists, that's somehow justified and rationalized. Alright, good to know. I'm glad how we embody this double standard and at the same time call ourselves, well, I don't call myself a inhabitant of the land of the free and home of the brave, but it also brings into question how we as the American population, we the people, are seen overseas because it seems like we're supposed to have this representative form of government where the president and these diplomats conduct our relations abroad, but when they're making terrible decisions that entirely violate the golden rule, the non-aggression principle, then these people overseas are thinking that we as a population consent to that as well, when truthfully a good majority, or at least a 50-50 split of the United States population, opposes these acts of federal government, and it's so disgusting. I feel terrible laughing at it, but I mean, the hypocrisy is just so great in this entire story that there's a double standard for everything, as I just said. 15 years old and you got brains, respect. Why, thank you very much. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce your username because I know I will butcher it. So, I gotta post this link on We Are Change, and then I'll finish reading some of this Washington Post article, which obviously is telling the entire truth, completely devoid of propaganda and rhetoric, because the Washington Post has no affiliation with Operation Mockingbird and the CIA buying out journalists in the past, but that's all okay. So let's see if we have any new viewers. What's your opinion on America going through a second revolution? I will come right back to that, Grayson. I want to finish up this article real quick, and then I will be sure to touch on that. The announcement appeared to put off an imminent cruise missile attack on Syria and opens the door to what will be almost certainly a contentious and protracted debate. Obama's remarks came as senior administration officials were making a fresh round of calls to congressional leaders on Saturday in an effort to bolster support for a potential military strike on Syria, officials said. So, where is the logic in this? I know I've said this, but we're saying that it's okay, justified to intervene abroad, but then at the same time, if these Egyptian militants were to come on U.S. soil and act as a police force, then that would be a complete violation of Passe Comitatus, and we'd be vehemently opposing it. But the United States, were the Aryan race, were superior, and obviously I say that in the starkest sarcasm possible. So why do we have such a myopic view on the world and think that we're somehow hierarchically significant or superior to other people? It really erodes this notion that we, not even in America, but we as a world, as humanity as a whole, is somehow unequal. And I mean, evidently it is through the caste system that's been strategically designed by the elite, but regardless of that, it's still furthering this notion of the 99.9% versus the 0.1%, or whatever you want to call it, and it just boggles my mind every day. We're continuing to weigh our options, a senior U.S. official said. We're confident in our analysis that the United States and our allies can handle any contingencies that come as a result of military action should it be chosen by the president. Well, how does the president play into all of this? Because if it's the president's choice, then why is he running it past Congress? I mean, executive orders don't exist or anything like that. And then it says that we're weighing our options. Yeah, I'm sure that the United States government is definitely considering everything in the perspective of unbiased, and they wouldn't do anything for the sake of their own political aims or agendas. They have the best interest of everyone at heart, and that's why things like aspartame are passed and given clearance to be on the market, because they don't present any type of threat to humanity, and it doesn't correlate to any interest of, or the self-interest of, other people. So, yep, no issue whatsoever. Alright, Grayson, I'll get back to you in 1 second. Herky Fishbine, no video feed. Yes, unfortunately, my PC that I recently built does not have a webcam, and therefore I cannot stream video. But hopefully you're enjoying the beauty of my Teen Take logo designed by a fellow fan. So, Grayson Grant 98, what is your opinion on America going through a second revolution? Well, I think the second revolution, the second American Revolution, as Adam Kokesh has dubbed it, is a war on consciousness. It is not necessarily a physical war, albeit there are various aspects, such as the Syrian conflict that we've been surveying, that really fuels this notion of the physical world in this war and this battlefield. But I think that it's a process of awakening minds, because people are so ignorant and they just really don't want to consider the truth. I mean, being 15 years old in high school, I ate lunch in the cafeteria the other day, and one of my classmates, I was trying to educate her on GMOs, and I said, yeah, GMOs, they're really volatile and they have adverse health effects and they're really bad, and I've chosen to not eat them all the time, or try to oppose them as much as I possibly can, not going to fast food restaurants such as McDonald's and everything. And she said, oh, well, everybody dies anyways. It's a fact of human life and human nature. So therefore, why don't I just acquiesce, bend over, and take these GMOs? And I said, well, according to that logic, why don't you go snort cocaine, inject yourself with heroin, and go play in traffic? I mean, it's completely illogical. So yeah, people are so ignorant, but I mean, that's the state of comfort. That's the state of assimilation. That's the state of incrementalism. So if people are ignorant, they're obviously not obtaining the truth. But I think the mainstream media is one of the main provocateurs and perpetrators of this ignorance, of this complete not paying attention, I guess. I don't know how else to word it, but they present such this stupidity, really, because they have things on and sensationalize them, such as the whole Miley Cyrus VMA debacle, where she's dressing like a slut and doing these acts of prostitution, pretty much. And people focus so much energy and externalize so much energy and passion towards reading all about that, reading the new updates on that story, that they don't even notice that all during this time, World War III is brewing in Syria, and our own government, our own people, our own representatives that we're supposed to be looking up to are the ones perpetrating that very act. So, and another thing that I could get into really is the background of Miley Cyrus's VMA performance, because personally, I used to watch Hannah Montana. I know anybody else in my generation probably has as well, and I'll admit, when I was a child, it was a good show. But she's transitioned from this stereotypical Hollywood young child star to now this MK Ultra sex slave of mind control. And she has all these tattoos of Illuminati symbolism, the all-seeing eye, Eye of Providence, and she's wearing her hair up in this style of like Luciferian horns, and it's so disgusting. And Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, whatever, is not some type of fluke in the system either. It's very prevalent throughout our society. If you look at people, quote-unquote stars or celebrities, I don't even think I have the grounds to call them that, but if you look at people like Kesha, who else, Beyonce, I want to say, I'm not exactly sure, but a lot of these famous singers, these actors, these stars actually show these subconscious messages that are supposed to be stored, and by doing so, they say to children, the younger generation, well, if you act like me, then you're going to be the cool kid in your school. And they're trying to kind of further give out these messages of pretty much submission to anything, and you can't think for yourself. Instead, you have to be universalized by these doctrines of the media and of how society should depict you as quote-unquote cool as its relative. Yes, we all watched Hannah Montana. Yes, that is very true, Patrick. So, moving on. We as a nation need to cease policing the planet and take care of our own. I couldn't agree more, Herky Fishbein, because that's so true, because I read in a recent article relating to the whole Syria conflict and chemical warfare that Obama or one of his high-up advisors said, yeah, we need to worry about Syria and how their political affairs are being conducted. And I'm not trying to downplay or debase the true volatility and the true graveness of Syria and these innocent people who are dying, but at the same time, we're trying to worry about the law in other countries when at home on U.S. American soil, we're not even being granted our constitutional rights, which truly are God-given. And as much as I support and abet the Constitution, at the same time, I think that mere scribbles on a piece of ancient parchment doesn't necessarily give us rights, and that's not where we gain birthright powers. Instead, we gain them from God or whatever superior entity anybody believes in, or just you gain them as an individual. You don't have to have some social contract that relegates and delegates what you can and can't do, and instead you should have autonomy over yourself and self-governance. So with that said, I'll check the chat in just a second here. I'm going to check Facebook real quick and see if there's any news or any suggestions that people may have. So again, please feel free to open up in the chat. All right, we got one viewer asking a question. And also, again, if you'd like to call in, feel free to add me on Skype at TeenTake. No spaces, I believe. So I'm going to peruse rt.com for a minute, and then I'll see if there's any articles that I could cover that pertain to either Syria or anything breaking news in the United States. Alright, so N.R. Wiggin. I'm not sure if that's how you correctly pronounce your username, but when do you think the dollar will collapse relative to the beginning of this war? Well, this made me think of something that I read recently, and I don't know if it has any correlation, and I will get back to the question in just a second, but I heard that the Obama administration is trying to intervene in Syria with cruise missiles or whatever type of ridiculous means that they're going to use that is just so unnecessary that they're going to use in this conflict. But I heard that they were going to start these interventions on the week of September 9th. So if that happens to take place on September 11th, as we know last year, Benghazi unfolded on September 11th, and also 9/11 unequivocally unfolded on September 11th. So I'm wondering if this is some type of masquerade trying to further this notion of terrorism existing in the world, and these fictitious people wearing white cloaks and turbans who apparently live under everybody's bed, and maybe giving credence and credibility to the TSA and their entirely facile means of screening people. But if you pay $85, you can go through without any gropings or molestation, so that's all right. But anyways, to get back to the question, you said, when do you think the dollar will collapse relative to the Syrian conflict? Well, I think the dollar has already collapsed, if you really think about it, because money, if anybody's studied the Federal Reserve, you know that money is fiat currency. It's paper. It has no intrinsic or inherent value. So it's truly the equivalent of monopoly money, and it's even colored the same way. So a simple piece of fabric really doesn't constitute any type of value. Instead, people should be bartering and making exchanges that are actually beneficial to both parties involved in fusing together these partnerships of bartering. But I think that it's very important to invest in gold and silver as well, because whenever this true economic collapse may be, the gold and silver bullion is something that truly retains value and can't be perversely regulated by Ben Bernanke by pushing some buttons on a computer. So I think gold and silver are definitely more stable means of an economic asset. But other than that, let's see, what else did other people say? But relative to the Syrian conflict in particular, I'm not exactly sure. I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but I definitely think that, during the Great Depression, World War II, I believe it was, maybe World War I, I'm no historian, and that's terrible, I know. But obviously, prices either inflate or deflate relative to the war and all these various factories and industrialization and such. Love what you're doing to spread knowledge. This planet needs more like you. From Sweden. That is incredible. Joanna, I'm not exactly sure. I think you might have been in a stream before and I mispronounced your name, so I apologize, but much love towards you as well. Sending good vibes your way. Sweden, I've never visited there, but maybe I could take refuge in your home one time. That would be awesome. Everything in the world is based on ideas of other people. We always can change them. Think it's possible. What are you saying that in relation to? Everything in the world is based on the ideas of other people. Well, yeah, I definitely agree. Everything is relative. Everything is subjective. I mean, people can always debate whether something's objective or subjective, but personally I think that from person to person, reality is subjective, and that relates to the philosophy of solipsism, saying that reality is contingent, dependent on the individual, and maybe my perception of, say, the color blue diverges from someone else's perception, and likewise that has some pretty severe implications. I think a second revolution would be great to clean out all of the problem areas in our society. Well, I don't know what you would define quote-unquote problem areas as, but I think that a second American Revolution could possibly purge the government. If you guys would want to voice your opinions on your ideal form of government, personally, my ideal form of government would be minarchism. I guess you could say that. I haven't been converted to full-blown anarchy just yet, but definitely something far away and strayed from democracy, because democracy, everybody gets an equal voice, as it's said in the textbooks in school, the indoctrination centers, and nobody is marginalized. The minority always has a say in everything. They're not suppressed, they're not sidelined, or anything of the sort. I mean, here in America, our vote truly counts. We don't have anything that exists, such as an electoral college, where it's kind of a transparent layer in a Photoshop document where it kind of just increases the file size and increases this illusion of representative form of government, yet it really serves no true purpose. Alright, World War I, that was when the Great Depression was. Thank you very much, Diablo. Alright, so many people are in here. This is just incredible. Last night when my friend co-hosted and I did a 2-hour or 2.5-hour live stream, we had 7 people and it fluctuated downwards of there the entire time. So this is truly incredible. Continuing on, what do you think about the banking cartel? Well, I kind of alluded to that earlier. The Federal Reserve is definitely corrupt. I love how in the name Federal Reserve, it kind of fuels this fuels this idea that, oh, well, the Federal Reserve is federal, and therefore the government has a say in it, when truthfully it's anything but federal. It's a private institution that has no federal liability whatsoever. It's completely unaccountable, and it has no judicial oversight or anything of the sort, and it's regulated by Ben Bernanke, the current chairman. But something like the Federal Reserve is really scary, and I mean, they can just print money however they like. There's no regulation or no rules that they have to abide by. I mean, and especially it's unconstitutional. I forgot to mention that being the key factor in this. In the Constitution, it says that Congress shall have the full-blown authority to print and coin money, and the Federal Reserve, a private banking cabal, is doing so. So, I mean, it's not like it's the first time the Constitution has been circumvented in federal reality. I don't know, but it's absolutely unlawful. It's absolutely ludicrous, and people apparently don't pay attention because they still think that dollars have some type of inherent value. Word on the street is blank hits the fan in October. Well, I don't know. Everybody says that there's this imminent apocalyptic economic collapse coming in the future, and they keep saying it and saying it, so I really don't know what to believe. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, if there isn't a second American Revolution of consciousness, as I said earlier, then I definitely think some type of apocalyptic event will take place. And I don't mean that in the sense that the world will spontaneously combust due to comets flying over Russia. I don't know. I am investing in bullets. Well, that is very clever. So is the Department of Homeland Security buying up like some 2 million rounds of ammunition, and then also the TSA buying ammunition because apparently now they're going to be armed in the future or something if you decide that you don't want to pull down your pants and have them molest you in public. I mean, well, now they do have private rooms, so I mean, I guess it's kind of more like the equivalent to a lap dance or something at some strip club. But yeah, so the federal government's pretty much buying all the ammunition from stores so people can't buy it for themselves, which is pretty scary because now if they can't confiscate your guns like Dianne Feinstein would like, then they'll just buy up all the ammo so you can't do it yourself. But 3D printing definitely seems to have some potential in the future and definitely audacity in that whole controversy of gun control and what have you. I think we should have a national vote on every military issue. That is a really good idea, but at the same time, I think it should be obvious enough that we don't even have to vote on military intervention, because I think countries should be sovereign to the extent that they can handle their own domestic issues instead of having other people intervene for the sake of political agendas. And then once one country intervenes, then their adversary intervenes as well, and it's this whole soup of people in a battlefield. That was a terrible analogy. I'm sorry, I can't think today. Gold is only valuable because we say it is. It doesn't do anything. Oil is a real value. Yeah, I can't refute that point. That's incredibly true, and that's, I think, one of the main pretexts as to why we intervene again into all these countries. We do it for the sake of democracy because there's these terrorists where oil resides, and therefore they were the perpetrators of 9/11, so therefore we must go and take the oil from their countries. But absolutely, oil fuels cars. It has many other uses for the industrial realm, I would assume. And I mean, yeah, I guess so. So we're really not intervening and sticking our hands in this gelatinous goop of foreign affairs. Instead, we're doing it for our own justification and gratification, really. We Are Change has linked to you, so there's more of us aware of you. Well, Dylan Davies, UK, I assume you reside in the United Kingdom, which is awesome because you're actually concerned on world affairs. And you're listening to me, and I reside in the United States. But anyways, that's pretty cool because I'm actually an admin on the We Are Change Facebook page, but thank you for joining. It is much appreciated. And if anybody in here could share this on any other pages that they're an administrator on, or simply shout this out on your personal Facebook page, feel free, because that would be awesome to get some more people in here. And the main reason that I'm doing this live stream right now is because I'm procrastinating from my public indoctrination center, aka school homework, so the more the merrier. A violent revolution is not productive and should only be a last resort. Also, World War II began during the Great Depression. Okay, well then, somebody else in the chat contradicted you, and my mind is blown. But yeah, I agree. A revolution is necessary, but that's why I said that it should be a conscious revolution, because obviously I am a subscriber to the non-aggression principle. I don't advocate violent means of anything, and coercion, if we're trying to start a revolution but we're using means that are coercive, then we're truly just mirroring and reflecting the values that our government has, and by doing that, we're not doing anything to help the liberty movement. Instead, we're really decreasing its audacity. Alright. My dad tried to sell our house to move to Iceland. It's worth $250,000, but not even a bank would buy it. That's an interesting statement. I don't know what relevance that has to what we were just mentioning, other than bank possibly being juxtaposed with Federal Reserve. I'm not entirely sure. Peaceful anarchy. See, that's the thing. I love entirely the idea of anarchy, and I have been a supporter of it in the past. And I like the philosophical idea of anarchy, that you can rule yourself and there's such a thing as spontaneous cooperation. I made a video back a while now called I Pencil, where it essentially says that a pencil is such a simple thing, a simple instrument that we use every day, but we really take it for granted, and there's no one person in the entire world that knows specifically how a pencil is made. Instead, all these different individuals from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different races, different genders, all of those people cooperate with the pencil being the end means, and they accomplish that. So instead of centralizing the roads or the United States Postal Service to government agents or government contractors, then instead we could actually empower ourselves. And that's the main predominance that I love about anarchy, but at the same time I'm not really sure how feasible it would be in reality, because I agree, conceptually it seems flawless, but at the same time there's always that one person in the group that isn't willing to cooperate. And I don't know, I'd have to really live like in a virtual world of anarchy to simply comprehend all its different caveats and different twists and turns. Gold's intrinsic value comes only from its high conductivity. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not even going to comment on that. Okay, so you just made me angry a little. We are a republic, not a democracy. Read the pledge. Well, Grayson, if you want to go that route, people always heckle me for this. They say we live in a republic, not a democracy. Well, okay, but I mean, to me it's just a different word. I don't really see too much of a contrast between the two. But my version of the Pledge of Allegiance, I am going to try to recite it off the top of my head and give you my rendition that I say every day during school. Here we go. I pledge disallegiance to the Fed of the disunited States of America and to the oligarchy for which it stands, one nation, under Obama, divisible with tyranny and injustice for the 1%. So that is my version of the Pledge of Allegiance, or possibly I should reword the title to the Pledge of Disallegiance. But it's true, we really have no relation or any type of common ground between the elite. Instead, it's this oligarchy of elitists at the top of the pyramid, and then all of we the people who the Constitution delegates power to at the bottom, at the base of the triangle. And it's completely corrupted. That is why we need a conscious revolution to reverse that triangle, therefore empowering the average person instead of the intellectual banker elite trying to impose whatever political aims and constriction of liberties he or she may want. You have tons of support from Canadians. Well, Angel Buzz, that may be attributed that I work as a Press for Truth correspondent with the great man Dan Dix, and he is obviously from Canada, so perhaps that is why you might say something like that. But if you have any further insight or elaboration to that, feel free to let me know. The entire population of politicians and enforcers. They have new orders for more bullets. They are non-Geneva approved. I assume you're referring to the Department of Homeland Security siphoning, or not siphoning, hoarding and taking up all these bullets, and it's just entirely ridiculous. And then they're getting these cardboard target practice targets, and they have women and children and like pregnant women with children. It's just entirely disgusting. How can people who do these things sleep at night? It boggles my mind, and it will ensue to do so until something changes in this snow globe of like self-interest that we call the United States. If you were going to buy a gun, buy a 40 or a 223 weapon so that ammo will be lying around. That's a good tip. What do you think is going to happen in the big scheme of things if Obama, that was clever, does go through with the Syria attack? Live at... Alright, the message that you sent abruptly ended, probably because of Ustream's chat limit. But what do you think the big scheme of things is if Obama goes to the Syria attack? Well, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know the geographic benefits of Syria, but it'll definitely be a mean to further constrict our civil liberties. If something erupts terribly in Syria, then somehow the United States government will make this knee-jerk reaction that, well, they won't make the knee-jerk reaction. They'll cleverly construct this implementation of submission to government, and then from that, they'll eventually call in the media and they'll propagandize the American public, maybe through Miley Cyrus, to accept these new means of constriction of our civil liberties and erosion of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, etc. And they'll probably institute a new branch of government, or not branch of government, but a new division of alphabet agencies of the soup, of alphabet soup that is government acronyms. And from that, they'll just keep pushing forward with as much as they can take away from our personal individuality and sovereignty. And we need to resist that, though, because if we don't, then obviously we're, one, submitting, and two, the government is getting what they want and becoming more powerful and really becoming a more powerful entity all in itself. What's your opinions about Israel or American conspiracy propaganda such as causing war for oil? I'm not entirely sure, but I know that the media is all about warmongering, along with the White House and Obama administration, because without it, they would be out of a position. And, I mean, what role would they have in being the president or what have you? I want the lyrics to that pledge. Can you post them, please? I actually have a image that I made on my Facebook page, facebook.com/teentake, and it's one of the first images that I ever posted, but it's on there. If not, I may post a status with it after this live stream, and then you could just get it from there. But if not, this live stream will be posted in a recorded fashion and version, so you can always go back in time and view that. How would you overthrow this tyrannical government without violence? Do you really think it's possible? Well, it's definitely possible without violence, and I'm not just saying that in some type of utopian way, but it is legitimately true, because if somehow we miraculously converted every person in America, except for government employees and officials, to see the truth and see that what is theft? It's taking something that's not yours. What are taxes? It's the government taking something that's not yours. And if we can get everybody to see the stark contrast between the illegality of the individual versus the illegality of government, then we can truly unearth this illusion to the average people. And let me think how to phrase this. In a war, the majority wins. I mean, that's not always true, but if you have the more people you have in a movement, such as a war, the better chance you have of winning. So if there's, say, 1 to 2 million awakened individuals now, if we somehow institute this war on consciousness and enlighten other people, just walk down the street someday, spark up a conversation with a stranger, as I've done in the past on the beach. It's a very enlightening process, and it really makes you feel energized and such. But if we simply empower a lot of people, it doesn't have to be everybody in the world, everybody in the United States, but if we empower enough people with the knowledge, then, as one quote says, knowledge is power. And by giving people this knowledge, whether they initially believe it or not, we give them that thought process, that parallel of logic to deduce for themselves the true volatility and illegitimacy of government. So yes, I personally think that it is possible. And also, if we have this defeatist attitude that, oh, well, it can't happen, then we're really internally depressing ourselves, and then how are we going to institute change? You gotta be the change that you want to see in the world, as Gandhi once said. How close do you think we are to civil unrest or a police state? Oh man, how close do I think we are to a police state and civil unrest? Well, I don't think we're close at all, because we're already there. The train has stopped at the train station of police state and civil unrest at an intersection of these two train tracks. Because if you've ever looked on YouTube for any type of police brutality, it's so profuse, it almost is like spam at this point. I mean, I covered a story during this past summer on Tremaine McMillian, who was a teenager from the Miami-Dade County of Florida, and he was simply at the beach roughhousing with one of his friends, just playfully. The cops came over and they said, "Where's your mother?" And the young man, I think he was 14 years old, he simply ignored the officers, not saying anything to them, but he was actually walking towards his mother, and during this whole time, he was actually nursing a baby puppy with a milk bottle. So he was walking towards his mother, and these cops were continually following him, and then eventually, like halfway on his way to seeing his mother, the cops violently attacked him, nearly choked him to death. Tremaine urinated on himself, and that's just one of so many examples of police brutality in the United States. And what other stories are there? There's the Adam Kokesh story. He was dancing at the Jefferson Memorial in an act of civil disobedience, and these Parks police officers tackled him, choked him on the floor. And the irony of the entire thing was that Thomas Jefferson, the statue of him, is just positioned in the middle of that memorial, and it's just like, what would Thomas Jefferson be thinking if he saw this? A founder and framer of the Constitution of the United States, who outlined libertarian values, and this incessant abuse of badge power. I mean, nowadays, if you have some shiny badge and credentials, then you have the right to go against just basic human nature and laws of mankind. How can we get our military on our side of the revolution? Well, I know that the military is waking up, because I think through means such as post-traumatic stress disorder, that after the war, I mean, granted, it's kind of too late at one point, but on the other hand, at the same time, the military is saying, I feel so terrible about myself. I've witnessed this extent of brutality, and I shouldn't have imposed this on any person, not even my worst enemy. And when they realize that and these stories surface, then I think more people are waking up. But I think the internet has definitely had a major role in this, the advent of awakening process, I guess you could say. But the internet has been influential, at least in my life. I was personally awakened with Jesse Ventura, his TV episodes, and I saw those online as well. And with means of communication such as Facebook, texting, phone calls, etc., it's just a really insane medium of communication that is really, truly returning the power to we the people, and less from the government. How many percent of the people of your age know so much like you, or want to know so much like you, do you think? Well, that is a really, I wouldn't say difficult, but that's a hard question to judge, because at least at my school, the general friends and the general people that I hang around, they're more concerned about their sex life, their sports that they play, extracurricular activities, academics, than they are about the world around them. And many people would much rather watch TV, the daily brainwash that it is, as opposed to actually finding out what type of current events are going on in the world. And I'm actually a part of this history class in my school, which is taught by an amazing teacher. And it's awesome because every Friday we have this current event quiz for extra credit, world affairs, etc. And it's awesome because generally I know the majority of the answers, not to sound self-centered or bratty or anything, but it's just because I really vehemently research this stuff and truly care about it and how it affects us, because it's not just like some fictitious narrative in a book. Instead, it's reality. These people are dying abroad, and it's really happening. But anyways, we have these current events quizzes, and many people do okay on them, but some of the questions in there, they're generally, again, about current events. I guess I'm trying to stress that point. But then from that, they're also, some of the questions are about like sports and recent events that are in like the entertainment world and all these things that really shouldn't be a prime focus in our lives, that we shouldn't be externalizing energy towards, and instead we should be studying the Syrian conflict, the NSA, the illegitimacy of government, that taxation is theft, and these stories of police brutality that are flooding not really the media because they don't cover the majority of them, but we need to be more aware of what's going on, and we can't just pretend like these things don't exist, turn a blind eye and be ignorant any more longer, because then our power will be more eroded, and eventually we won't have any power whatsoever. We'll just be slaves and robots mind controlled in FEMA camps. All right. Do you think there is underlying reasons for this ridiculous trip to Mars? You should get Michael Moore on your show. Oh man, I don't think I could handle Michael Moore. I haven't heard of this trip to Mars, but maybe they can find oil on Mars. Maybe they can, spread democracy to extraterrestrials as a means to intervene for oil and whatever other agendas that they're trying to pursue. So I haven't heard too much on that, but Michael Moore, he is, oh my goodness, he's a complete contradiction of himself. And he says, oh, well, gun control shouldn't exist, or gun control should exist and should be highly regulated. And yes, to some extent, I agree that there should be background checks, that being pretty much the basis of my agreeing with gun control. But other than that, people should definitely have a right to self-defense. You can't deprive somebody of their fist or of any other means of self-defense. So, Michael Moore, I don't like him personally. I'm part of that percent. Alright, well, just because I'm bored, I'm glad that you are part of the percent, the 99... Well, I don't know how we should classify ourselves as awakened entities, because we're not really part of the 99%, because those people are sheeple, and the 1% is the elitist, so who knows? What kind of retaliation can there be after the Syria attacks by the U.S. from Syria, Iran, China? Well, needless to say, if somebody came into your country and started blowing up these cruise missiles on people that same people firing the missiles funded, then one, I'd see it as a contradiction, but also the retaliation, there definitely has to be backlash. To say that there wouldn't be is completely ludicrous, but at the same time, to think that we have the power or somehow this right to do that is completely fallacious. And also, this makes me think back to a conversation I had with my mom a while ago, a few weeks ago I think it was now, and she was saying, well, drone strikes are in essence good because they kill terrorists, and, they're good. Who cares if they take some collateral damage? And then I said, well, wait a second. Now, there have been people who have been American citizens who have been killed who have no affiliation with terrorists or anything of the sort. So, if one of our neighbors on our street was a terrorist and a drone bombed their house and took us as collateral damage, then is that somehow justified and somehow okay? I mean, people have to consider these discussions, these debates, these controversies in context of their own shoes, of their own lives, because in American Drone, a film that was submitted to the Alex Jones Operation Paul Revere contest, these drone strikes are not, well, maybe for operators they are, but in reality they're not just pixels on a computer screen. It's not some video game. Real lives are at risk, and we can't just somehow cast that idea aside and just say, oh, well, we're doing it for the sake of the betterment of humanity. That is not true. And also, with this advent of technology, this dawn of technology, this true technocracy that's being implemented in the United States, I think that there definitely has to be other methods to drones that can, if terrorists truly do exist in the amounts that the government proclaims they do, then I think there have to be other more humane ways or non-compromising ways to take out and execute these terrorists. But then again, too, it's kind of like an argument in and of itself, kind of like capital punishment, because if you're killing people because they killed people, then you're just saying, we're killing people to kill people because they killed people, and killing people is wrong. So it's this infinite regress of contradiction, of paradoxes, and I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, it seems so obvious to me. I'm sure it does to you guys as well, but evidently to the average American public, it does not. My friends in the military lied about willingly firing on Americans so they could get behind the line. I am confused by that. Let me read it again. My friends in the military lied about willingly firing on Americans so they could get behind the line. Well, yeah, now it seems the army members, the military, they take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, but instead they're taking innocent lives and going to war. I mean, why do people have to go to war? I get that wars are not fought between people. Instead, they're fought between government, corporations, what have you. But all these people fighting the war who think they're doing it for just and moral causes are truly just these pawns of big bankers and the fat cats on Wall Street who are trying to, again, pursue political aims. So, I don't know how else to explain it. What would you propose to be the most effective way to enlighten those around me? Oh man, that is a tough question. Well, I would say start with the basics. So, research any acronym that you've ever heard that espouses controversy or is illegitimate in and of itself. For example, GMO, NDAA. Research the basis. Search 9/11. Maybe that's not a good primer for an awakened mind, because many people arise cognitive dissonance when they hear that 9/11 may have possibly been an inside job. Have them research that the TSA has not caught a single terrorist. Have them research fluoride. Have them research the NSA, wiretapping, what else? Drone strikes, police brutality, the Federal Reserve. If you really truly just go on a mainstream news site and just peruse it for a little while, and once you've researched these items that I've just mentioned, then you'll really recognize how this propaganda is being implicated through print and wire organizations such as the mainstream corporate circle jerk of puppets and mouthpieces of the federal government. What would you say would be the best way to open the eyes of fellow humans? Well, I think that's kind of what I just touched on with being enlightened, I guess. But to open the eyes of fellow humans, personally, I mentioned this briefly before, but I've been doing interviews recently on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/teentake, and I essentially go to the beach and interview strangers on controversial topics and get their opinions pretty much. But the technocracy that's being implemented in the US and really globally at this point, people being constantly and incessantly glued to their smartphones, Twitter, Miley Cyrus, who knows what at this point. But if you actually get people to withdraw from that technology for just a second and actually have a heart-to-heart, real discussion, look people in the eyes when you're talking to them, then you'll truly reveal their humanity. Because when I was doing this at the beach, I often stereotyped the people that I was going to interview, saying, well, I don't want to interview them, they look scary, etc. But then once I go up to them, they're the nicest people you would have ever imagined. And it's incredible how people have this predetermined prejudice towards people, when truly you just need to spark up a conversation, molt your feathers of awkwardity or anxiety or what have you, and getting to know other people. That is what humanity is truly about. I mean, we only have one life, and life is short. We have to spend it how we need to actualize the reality that we want to see projected in our lives. And if we don't just talk to people, I mean, what other things are we going to do? Are we just going to confine ourselves to some box in our room in darkness for the rest of our lives? You need to get out there and awaken minds just by talking, just having a nonchalant conversation with somebody, and it's so empowering. You get so much energy from it, and you truly exude a higher frequency relating to the pineal gland and aural frequencies, if anybody watching has studied those things. Alright, what are your views on the matter of desensitization through video games / television shows? Well, originally, personally, I used to be a video gamer. I loved Call of Duty, and it was a great way to relax, even though it eventually overtook my life at one point, and I didn't have any degree of social interaction whatsoever. But anyways, I think those games can... I mean, it really depends, I think, because if somebody is mentally stable and they play the games in short increments of time just as a means to relax or chill out, what have you, then I think that's a reasonable pastime hobby. But at the same time, if somebody's mentally unstable or incessantly glued to their TVs like I was at one point, and constantly seeing just shooting people for points or gratification in a game, then I think that's really scary. But if anything, I think that TV has a greater deal to do with it, because we see all these stories when there's school shootings like Sandy Hook, like the Aurora shooting, and the media just pounds these images and these stories into our heads to such a degree that eventually we say, oh yeah, another school shooting, big deal, whatever. And when we think on that parallel of rationalization, then it's pretty scary and explosive, because we're saying, oh, it's just another person who died, no big deal, why even pay attention to it? And it's the same with war, really, that it's just another person compromised and sacrificed on the battlefield. No big deal, they were fighting in the name of freedom for a good cause, so therefore it's alright. So yeah, video games, television. Television also plays a role in desensitization of really our innocence when we're children, because they introduce through music videos and TV shows subliminal messages that really degrade this innocence that we have, and the subliminal message of sexuality, prostitution, etc. And it's pretty scary stuff, and that's one of the things, if I do actually go to college and not just indebt myself to the system of slavery that college is, then I think it would be really neat to get a degree in communications, media, or marketing, and truly see how these things are implemented from the grassroots and where they come into fruition, to really study this even more passionately and try to uncover greater truths. Would you, as an American, take up arms to protect our liberties against imposing government martial law? Well, I am a mere 15 years of age, so for me to go full Paul Revere revolutionary and take up arms against the government, I think that sounds a bit radical at this point in my life. But, I mean, I think it's hard to explain, because I, again, am a subscriber to the non-aggression principle, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and I oppose violence in every means necessary unless it becomes a matter of self-defense. So if the government was trying to induce some sort of event to the caliber of a Holocaust, then of course I would definitely try to defend humanity and my fellow individuals, fellow Americans. I don't care what country you reside in, if you're American, German, whatever. So I definitely fight for that, because indifference to evil is evil. But at the same time, if the government's just perpetrating corrupt actions as they're doing right now, then I don't think that it would be entirely necessary to go and shoot them up or whatever, because I think that's extreme. But I mean, it is necessary to establish boundaries, draw the line between what government can't do. I mean, the Constitution and Bill of Rights outlined a system of limited government. So, with the means of executive orders now that Obama possesses at his whim, then I mean, it's pretty scary stuff, and it completely violates the Constitution, but people don't seem to care. They don't seem to even bat an eye. Alright, I'm going to be closing up this live stream soon, so nobody send any more questions, even though I'm sure you guys will. But I'm going to wrap this up in the next 20 minutes tops. Would you as an American take up arms to protect... Oh, okay, I just read that. Wow, I am special. How do you react to people who fight you on topics like this that's so sensitive? Do you get angry too? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that I get angry, but it is definitely frustrating when people don't get the context or light of the argument where you're coming from. Because, I mean, I guess a few years back when I wasn't enlightened, to say that the government was trying to intentionally stage false flag terror on foreign lands as a means to oust Fidel Castro, I'd say, oh, that's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, if I even comprehended what that meant a few years back. But I mean, you really have to just dive headfirst into these topics and uncover each individually and then connect them later. Because if I were to say that the Child Protective Services killed a child, you'd immediately say, nope, couldn't happen. Or if I were to say 9/11 was an inside job, you'd say, nope, couldn't happen. But once you investigate all these various topics, being Operation Northwoods, Operation Mockingbird, the TSA, NSA, everything, then you really can see the light of these arguments where I'm coming from as well as where other individuals are coming from. So it's definitely frustrating, but I think what outweighs the frustration of it too is that when you find one person who is actually aware of what's going on and they are on the same line of logic that you, or not the same line of logic, but when there are other people who understand the activism that you do, and even if they don't, if they just appreciate the passion that you exert into the content that you create and the activism that you pursue, then that's very empowering, and that to me definitely outweighs the frustration of dissenting voices, if you will. Okay. Do you drink fluoridated water? I do not drink fluoridated water. I have a reverse osmosis filter that I use, and ever since I've purchased that a while ago, I have noticed that I have been significantly more clear in my neurological activity, my process of thought, and definitely more concise in my speech. I don't know if that has any correlation because I still do slip up on words at times, but I definitely noticed that I've been more creative as well. So fluoride is definitely toxic, as we all know. Hexafluorosilicic acid and sodium silicofluoride, two byproducts in fluoride, or two chemicals in fluoride really, that are disposed from the phosphate industries, and then city municipalities purchase them and then put them in the water because fluoride cures cavities, right? No, that is absolutely false, because if you think about it, just logically, no, you don't have to have any scientific knowledge behind this. When you drink a glass of water, do you just swallow it straight, or do you swish it around in your mouth for like a full minute, and does it really truly get into the deep pits of your teeth where cavities form? Because to me, I just swallow it straight. I don't slosh it around in my mouth. So if fluoride's not even interacting with my teeth, then how can it therefore prevent cavities? It's absolutely false, and there are some dentists out there that will actually admit this, and to those people, I applaud. If not, how do you avoid it? Well, if you don't drink, just as a tip for those who don't drink unfluoridated water, then I would say that you could get spring water and then simply use some type of filter to get the bad stuff out of it, like the bacteria or what have you. But if you don't drink fluoridated water, you should definitely buy bottled water, but make sure that your bottled water doesn't sit out in the sun for prolonged periods of time, because then it will produce a chemical, I believe, that is called BPA, and that is cancerous. It's a carcinogen, so you don't want to do that. But also, if you drink water, make sure it says reverse osmosis, because if it doesn't, it could just be tap water that's bottled and just absurdly more money. What are some legit news coverage sources? Personally, I love RT. Russia Today, you can say, oh, it's Putin's state-run propaganda press, but I personally have found RT to be very reputable and professional with the content that they produce, and that's my main source of news. I also do occasionally check the mainstream media alphabet agencies, being Fox, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, but when I do that, I generally do it just to kind of pick out the pieces of propaganda that they put in there, and it's really funny stuff. So definitely check out RT. Twitter and Facebook are also very empowering. You gotta double check everything you see on there, but Facebook and Twitter are incredible means of communication in this digital age. Listen to the song Nocturnal Rainbows by Hobson. He kills it about Obama. Yeah, well, we all love Obama, right? He's Big Daddy. He takes care of all our needs. He gives us Obama phones. He gives us Obamacare that's not bad in any means whatsoever. So, yeah, let's love Obama. He's a great guy. And, you know, he occasionally kills innocent children, but that's okay. You talk a lot about GMO. It makes me curious. Are you vegan? If not, why? Wow, that was an incredible question. I am currently not vegan. I am currently not a full-time vegetarian, but that's only because I live with my parents and I don't want to put them through the hassle of preparing meals and then having me not eat them, because that makes them mad for whatever reason, even though I've offered in the past to make my own meals. But yeah, even regardless of the health benefits of vegetarianism or veganism, the compassion or the lack of compassion to be omnivorous is truly disgusting, and the amount of meat that people eat nowadays, and now studies have come out saying that chicken contains arsenic, then there are really truly benefits to being vegetarian vegan. So yeah, ultimately, once I get out of my purview of parentalism, then once I live on my own, I definitely want to fully convert to vegetarianism and then ultimately transition into veganism, because I personally love every type of animal. Even if it's a spider, there have been spiders crawling around my house before, and I don't have the heart to like stomp on them or crush them with a napkin. Instead, I get a glass, put a note card under it, and then relocate them outside. So I mean, to think that we as humans are the only creatures and are the only ones that possess intellectual capacity, then, I mean, that's such a tunnel vision version of reality. And I personally view myself as not like an Aryan race, if you will, because I believe that animals and all creation is not subhuman or above human, because I don't know how to explain my religious views. That's an entirely different debate or rant, really. But yeah, so compassion, if anybody has ever seen PETA videos or factory farming videos, it's just absolutely disgusting, and I can't bear witness to that, let alone abet it by consuming these various products of dairy and meat altogether. Okay. What do you think was the reason for the blackout at the Super Bowl? Beyonce and Jay-Z are associated with Freemasons. No? Oh yeah, what day is the March Against Monsanto for Ontario? Well, I'm not exactly sure if the blackout at the Super Bowl was some staged false flag, not terror attack, but I don't know, some staged thing. But as far as the March Against Monsanto, I did actually attend that in March. No, it was May, because I always got it confused because it was called the March Against Monsanto, but it was actually in May. And I attended that. I made a video on YouTube if anybody wants to check it out, youtube.com/teentake. And I had an awesome time there. I went with my friend David, who was co-hosting with me last night. And we conducted some interviews with people, asking them why they decided to attend the March Against Monsanto, what significance it has in their life. And there was actually one speaker there who was the daughter of a veteran in the military, I would assume, who fought in Vietnam, and he was a victim of somehow he had interactions with Agent Orange produced by the great people at Monsanto, and she had to have one of her legs amputated due to a birth defect as a result from Agent Orange. So even people in the Western world away from Vietnam, those people are still being affected today by Monsanto's creations of chemical brewery, and it's absolutely disgusting. Perhaps talking about the HARP program would be beneficial to some who are listening. Yeah, so HARP is incredible. It is located in Gakona, Alaska. Its acronym stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, which in layman's terms pretty much means that it shoots these beams of electronic frequencies or electric frequencies into the ionosphere somewhere up in the Earth. I'm not exactly sure. I'm no scientist. So it shoots up high frequencies of energy into the ionosphere, and then these localized systems of weather get funneled up into that, and ultimately HARP is a tool used for weather control. So it brings into question Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy, all these various tropical storms, and just weather, these anomalies in weather altogether. And actually, I've heard from my friend David, who was again co-hosting last night, he covered the science side of this, and he said that HARP has actually been proven, or some conclusive research has been done to make the connection that HARP can actually produce the aurora borealis. And in Japan, there was an earthquake like 2 years ago, I want to say 2008, and like half an hour before that earthquake actually happened, the aurora borealis was seen in Japan. So that's some pretty interesting and crazy stuff that I'll have to definitely investigate for myself, but that's what my friend David told me. So yeah, in HARP, it's not even some thing specific to the United States. It's not exclusive to the United States. Instead, it's actually found worldwide because HARP is considered an ionospheric heater. There's some located in Russia at the SARA facility, and in Puerto Rico, there is the Arecibo Observatory. So it also makes me think that maybe the UN has some means of doing this as kind of this, like, genetic engineering, geoengineering of the atmosphere. And it's really this whole genetically modified society that we live in now, with genetically modified food, geoengineering via chemtrails, and also now DARPA, a defense branch of, or a research arm of the Department of Defense, is actually trying to modify and change the human genome altogether. Yes, that is right, folks. They're trying to change and alter the DNA, the human genome, and it's really crazy stuff. Like, what are they trying to do? They're trying to add this 47th chromosome, and that's synonymous with Down syndrome. So by doing that, are we now going to be like some clockwork of the elite trying to, like, puppet us as these people and, like, pawns of genetic engineering? I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Okay. What's your take on legalization of marijuana, medical, industry, even recreation? So, marijuana, as far as recreational purposes are concerned, I absolutely support it. I would never smoke marijuana. I would never advocate the use of drugs. But marijuana, it's a naturally occurring plant, and if somebody wants to blaze it on fire, set it on fire, and inhale some of its fumes, then by all means, as so long as they don't tread on my personal rights, then they can go for it all they want. I could care less. But as far as the pharmaceutical aspect of marijuana is concerned, I think that they're purposely not trying, or the pharmaceutical complex is purposely not passing or legalizing marijuana, because marijuana is this homeopathic cure. And with the pharmaceutical complex, and it's truly a complex, an industry, because it's solely made for profit, and with all these drugs in the pharmaceutical industry, they're being dispensed to not cure the disease or cure the sickness, but just kind of cover up and cloak the symptoms of a sickness to further keep you dependent on these drugs that they're manufacturing to have them obviously yield a higher profit, just like Monsanto, at the expense of humanity and at the expense of human dignity and life. So that's in essence my take on marijuana. And also, I covered a story a few weeks back in Austin, Texas, I think it was. This child was actually taken by the Child Protective Services because her parents, after putting the child to bed, were smoking marijuana recreationally. And apparently one of their neighbors was a cop. He called the police, or maybe he went over himself, and he called Child Protective Services. They took the child, put her in foster care of this mother who actually abused her and ultimately led to her death of like a brain aneurysm for dropping her on the floor and abusing her, giving her bruises. So it's incredibly ludicrous that now the state is kidnapping children from their parents because they decide that they want to partake in lighting a natural plant on fire as a recreational activity. So where is this intrusion of government upon our civil liberties going to stop? It seems like it's never going to. Can I add you on Facebook so I can talk to you outside of the anti-media and teen take? Well, I really don't like accepting strangers, if you will, on my personal Facebook account, but you can by all means send me messages on there. I can't guarantee you at this point in time that I will accept your friend request, but if you want to send me a message on there, it'll be sent to my other folder, and from there you can actually communicate with me. So hopefully that helps. If not, I'm always sending messages on Teen Take and being interactive on there. Haha, love you've been thinking of vegetarianism or veganism. You will love it. Yeah, I'm excited to fully embrace it. But also, when you are converting to vegetarianism or veganism, you have to be very careful because with the advent of genetically modified products, such as soy being the main perpetrator, you have to be careful because things such as that a vegetarian may often depend on can actually make it worse and have adverse health effects as opposed to eating meat. But obviously, if it's a compassion issue, then that's another argument entirely. Okay, HAARP and Fukushima. Yeah, so I haven't studied too much on Fukushima lately, but I know that due to whatever they were doing at that period of time, there has been radiation leaking into the Pacific Ocean, I believe. And so I'm not going to go too much in depth of that because I don't ground myself as an authority on that topic. But HAARP is also very closely connected with obviously producing chemtrails for one and changing the weather. But also with that, it can actually be juxtaposed with GMO, because if HAARP wants to induce a drought in a certain region, then Monsanto can come in with their genetically modified drought-resistant seeds and say, oh, well, you're going to need these, and convert fully to those. And then when those seeds blow into an organic farm, then Monsanto's private agents wearing black, creepy suits can come knock on the door at the night and then sue those people and pretty much ruin their entire lives. So other than that, I think that was the majority of what I wanted to cover. If anybody has any last questions, shoot me one more, and then I think I'm going to sign off because unfortunately I have to finish up some schoolwork and edit another video of the live stream that I recorded last night. So I'll wait about 1 minute. If anybody has anything, feel free. If not, I will be signing off. Alright, it appears that nobody is authoring a question. So with that said, this has been Andrew Demeter doing a quick live stream on the 31st of August 2013, and I will be on Facebook the rest of the day. So if you guys have any personal questions relating to this whole idea of political corruption and such, then feel free to send them my way. I will include the Facebook link in the social stream right here. Alright, unfortunately I'm not signed in, so I can't do that. Oh man, when does the radio show kick off for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? Oh man, I wish I could do that. I truly wish I could, but This is probably like the best I can do, maybe twice a week on the weekends, but due to being inundated with schoolwork and such, it's really difficult to fit all this in. World War, China and Russia intervene. Yeah, I could see that unfolding, but I seriously need to go, guys. Awesome show. Thank you very much. This has been a historic landmark in Teen Take Live, the podcast viewership. At one point, we had like 71 people on. That is absolutely incredible. I apologize to you guys who are submitting questions now, but keep those for the next podcast, and I will be sure to address them. But thank you all so much. You are inspiring to me in the most genuine way possible. So again, thank you very much for tuning into this podcast. It is much appreciated. And if you have any other questions pertaining to the political world, the political field of battle, then feel free to address them to me on facebook.com/teentake. And I will see you guys next podcast. Thanks again. Catch you later.